Guys, welcome back to another episode of Cerebral Conversations. And this one is going to be special. I know I call them all special because they all are special in their own ways, but this one is special because I have the sister of the last person I just interviewed, and if she wants to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tamiko Miller.
Okay. So the first question I want to ask you, because I think you'd have a unique perspective on this. When I spoke with Ladanya, I asked her what it was like for her to find out that her son was on the spectrum, and finding out that her son has autism.
Yeah.
But you being her sister, what was it like for you to find that out? I mean,
Um, so with my background of what I do, I am a counselor and I also work with kids who have behavioral issues who may be on the spectrum, or diagnosed with autism or ADHD and different diagnoses with neurodivergent clients. When she I kind of could tell by signs, just a little bit of delays and things, just from my professional standpoint. But when we finally got the diagnosis, um, I wasn't, I, on the emotional side, as a aunt and a family member, just seeing, working in the school system, seeing how kids can be really rude and mean and not have that understanding of knowing, of having empathy. I was really worried about that in the aspect of him growing up. But as far as him as an individual, I knew he would still be bright. I knew that a diagnosis doesn't determine anything for anyone. And I knew that just with love and patience and just helping him learn, it was going to be okay. And that this was going to bring our family a little bit more closer together and come as a village and knit tight to provide my sister with the support and needs that she needs as being as a mother with a son who has autism, along with supporting my nephew as well.
okay, okay, yeah, she did mention to me before that you were a counselor. So I feel like the rest of this conversation is going to be really, really interesting because I'll be able to pick your brain and
Yeah, absolutely.
and learn a little bit more about it as well. And my dad, he also works in mental health. He's a mental health counselor at a mental health facility as
Oh,
well.
nice.
I interviewed him before, like when I was first starting doing my interviews, but how like there was technical issues, and we still have yet to redo that interview. So I definitely want to redo that interview as
Yeah, you
well with
should.
my dad. But yeah, I do like when she told me, I found out it was really, really interesting. So I'm really curious to pick your brain. But it's good to go back to your answer. I honestly think it's kind of interesting that with your background, you could kind of tell that something could have been there, but you didn't want to, outright say it for sure until you knew.
Right. And yeah, with that, because, um, people learn at different rates,
Hmm.
people develop things at a slower time. And I for sure am not anyone to be able to diagnose anyone. During that time, I'm now working to retrieve my license in counseling, so I will be able to diagnose. But at that time, I was in not fresh in mental health, but I was starting to gain more the concept of mental health and the concepts of autism and the different diagnoses. So, just based off of what I was learning in school, and then based off my reality of working with clients, and then also just based off just watching his developmental stages of when he was a baby and where he is now. I kind of had some suspicion, but again, like I said, I didn't want to throw that out there just because I wasn't 100% sure. I never had a child, so I can't say, oh, yeah, they should be doing this at this age. I can only go based off what textbook says. And, you know, being someone telling you something about your child can be harmful, especially if they don't have any experience with having a child, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I took that step back and wanted to let her be a parent and be able to go to professionals to be able to diagnose and be able to say, hey, these are the things that he's delayed in, or things like that. Um, and I just knew that I needed to be a support rather than someone on the outside of saying, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Because nobody wants to hear that in a time of trying to process things um, that are so like prevalent in that nature of what she was going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I can just from just from what you've been saying, like it kind of seems like it's kind of like a fine line to where it's like, okay, I'm not. It's like, okay, I'm noticing these things. I'm noticing these things, that I've read about. But it's like, but it's like, okay, do I put on my counselor hat, or do I put on my sister hat in this moment? And I could kind of see how, like, it's kind of like a fine line between you don't want to step on toes, but you want to make sure that you're there, and you don't want to like end up causing a rift where there doesn't need to be a rift. So.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So my next question, so based on what you just said, I wanted to ask, I was thinking about this as you were saying, um, your answers. What do you think is the most difficult thing about being a counselor? Like what do you think is the most difficult thing, and how do you kind of, like deal with some of the things that you probably have to deal with and see on a daily basis?
Um, I think one of the most difficult things is probably not being able to fix the problem. Um, it, when you are fresh in the field, you have this new passion and hope and like determination of like I'm going to change someone's life. And while that is a great idea to have and a great passion to have, it just doesn't, it's not always a reality in this field. I've learned in this field you just have to have so much patience. You have to have so much patience. You have to learn how to step back, because in counseling, what they'll teach you is that you're not the person to give advice. Like you're not the person to tell your client what to do. The process of counseling is the thought of breaking down things and being able to help your client process and see things in a new lens, in a different perspective. So if you were a person who just, a client tells you that, something's going on, in your right mind as a human, as an individual, what do we want to do? We want to help. We want to figure it out. We want to put the pieces in together for the client to be successful. And what we're doing at the end of the day is handicapping the client, because the client didn't come up with that solution. It was you. So if we have these sessions with clients and we're constantly giving the client the answers and helping them um, move on with life, what happens when we discharge them and they get out in real world and they're not able to use the thought process or critical thinking skills or being able to sit back and relax? What happens when they haven't worked on their anger, which is why they went to counseling, but you gave them all the answers and not done the work with them, and now they're out and about and something makes them mad and they pop off and now they're in jail. So learning how to step back and learning that the client has to want it more than you do was one thing that was really hard for me. And it's still kind of hard too, even working with adults now. I used to work with kids, and now working with adults is kind of like you want to like give them the answers and like go, go, go. But you really have to like remind yourself, like, you don't want to do all the work for the client, because at the end of the day, what is the client learning? What is the client processing and gaining from the experience?
Hmm. And I can only imagine how the transition is, from working with kids who are, still kind of like they're in that developmental stage where it's like they're willing to learn and willing to, like internalize the lessons that you're trying to give them and then and then you go and switch to adults into like teenagers to where they to where just being honest, we think we have everything figured out and we don't need help and we don't need to talk to everyone and we think we can figure things out our own way when in reality maybe those ways aren't working and maybe it is good to talk to somebody because
Yeah.
the stereotype when it comes to therapy is like, oh, I'm not sitting down and telling anybody and telling them my problems because they're gonna tell me how to fix things. When in reality, when in reality, all the therapist is asking questions. You're just answering the questions yourself.
Yeah.
You're just answering the questions yourself, and from there, the therapist will give you tools on how to, you know, fix the things and find the root of the problem. Whereas
Yeah.
most people think it's like, oh, I'm just telling the stranger my things, and then they're telling me how I should feel. No, that's probably how you already felt. You're just realizing it for yourself. All they're doing is asking the questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think what a lot of people don't understand about therapy is that you, as the client, you're really doing the work. You're just, we as a therapist, we're sitting back and we're listening and we're helping you process and we're validating you, but we're also um, listening and helping you process through it and acknowledging your feelings and thoughts, but at the same time, you are able to start learning more about yourself, or when you process through that situation, then you're finally able to look at it from clear eyes. Or what we try to do is get you to look at it through a clear perspective and clear eyes and healed eyes, where now you don't have to be the victim in that situation. We want to help you overcome being the victim and helping you become a lot more stronger and seeing how that one adversity has brought you to being the person that you are today. So it's more so of like just reflection, constant reflection, looking back at your trauma, constant reflection of just looking about where you were last month to where you are now, and how can we improve these areas, or what are the coping skills we can give you, what are the things that we can talk about to help improve you and being a better person and being a better individual.
Okay. Okay. So switching gears a little bit. you said you moved to Georgia recently. So what's the move? What was the move like, and how's it been? Transitioning from one state
Um,
to another.
The move has been really great. It's a great transition for me, I believe. When I was in Virginia, I had a lot of stuff together. You know, I had a good career. I, started doing a lot of things for myself. Being able to have that time to myself to grow as an individual. However, I struggled a lot with depression. Um, I struggled a lot with loneliness, and I struggled a lot with feeling like I was just, I had no one, which was not the case at all. I did have a great community in Virginia, but I didn't reach out to my community. I kind of suffered alone in the dark, and I suffered in silence. So I just knew that coming to Georgia, being closer to family, I am a family knitted person. I love my family. My mom and dad are like my best friends. I do a lot of things with them all the time. I used to go to North Carolina like every other weekend to go spend time with my parents, just because I needed that family unit. And because my sister has kids, my niece and my nephew are my world. So just even spending time with my nephew and niece, that just made me the best person. And that brought out the best version of me for myself. So I knew it was just time to make a switch of just being closer to family. Um, Again, like I said, I had lived in Virginia. My other sister, my oldest sister, lived in North Carolina. My parents lived in North Carolina, and then my other sister lived in Georgia. So I was kind of up away from family, where all of them were kind of closer together. And I just knew where I was with my mental health and my depression, that I just needed to be closer to family. And since I have been in Georgia, it's just been a great experience for my mental health for sure.
Nice, nice. I'm glad you decided to. Based on what you said, I'm glad you decided to make the move and do what was do what was best for you, because I know most people. Well, I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but I'm just gonna say like in a general sense. I know probably there's people that would they know that they have to make a change for their mental health, and they know where they're at. It's toxic, but since they're so comfortable in where they're at, they're not willing to step out and make the change, because they don't they us as people, we love familiarity, and we're scared of change because we don't know what's gonna happen or how it's gonna affect us. But sometimes change is for the best. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you decided to make the move.
yeah.
Okay, so this next question I wanted to ask was kind of stepping back into the mental health realm. I don't think did I ask this earlier? I'm not sure, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What made you want to get into mental health? Was there a specific reason? Was it just something that, oh, this would look like a good major, or was it like a specific event that like happened to where it's
Your
like, okay, I want to get
question
into it?
is as good as it gets. Honestly, so when I was in undergrad, I played softball at a school in North Carolina, and I hated it. My first college experience, hated it. I My parents said stay for 2 years. If you don't like it, you can transfer. I stayed, I did my 2 years, I transferred. I transferred to Liberty Universities where I retrieved my degree, my undergrad degree. Um, so at the time, it's funny because I was in ROTC in my old school, and I also was an exercise science major. So, and also pre-med, biomed is what they called it there. So my thought process was that I wanted to be in the army, um, and I wanted to do physical therapy in the army, or be along with sports. So that's why I had the sports exercise science degree. That's why I was going into that. Um, and when I transferred to Liberty, I was an exercise science major. But in that particular university, you have to do your prereqs to be considered an exercise science. So you're fighting for your position to get accepted into that program, because you can't just naturally just say I'm an exercise science major. You got to get in.
Mm,
So I was taking the prereqs to actually get into exercise science, and there was just one biology class. It was so hard. It was so hard. And in this class, you only get 4 tests, and that's it. There's no homework, there's no extra credit, there's just tests, only tests. And if you fail one test, or no, it's 4 tests and then the final exam. So five tests. But if you fail one test, you're pretty much done for, because you're not going to pass the class.
mm,
So it was super hard. I think I had to take that class maybe 2 times. And I was just like, yeah, if I can't even get through the basics, I can't even imagine what exercise science classes are going to look like. So I changed my major. I went to at the time, Liberty only had 2 programs for psychology. So I went into psychology, and it was counseling or clinical research. I was like, I don't like people. I don't want to deal with people. I'm going to go into clinical research. All right, graduated in clinical research. So that's more so on the statistic side of psychology. If you read like research papers and they say statistics show, or you read the research of it, like I was on that side of psychology. um And I didn't get into like mental health until I got my internship at Big Brother Big Sister, kind of saw what they did as far as mentoring, therapeutic mentoring, things like that. And I was like, oh, cool. I love this. And then I got my first job, and that was as a therapeutic mentor and providing mental health services. And that's when I just kind of fell in love with mental health, and I went back to school at Liberty and got a counseling degree in pastoral counseling because I really wanted to counsel in the church. And I wanted to have a women's ministry, and I just wanted to have like a facility, open a facility eventually for women and young girls to work with their mental health on giving them, resources of mentorship, job readiness skills, counseling, and pastoral counseling. And that's kind of where it all aligns. And not to mention, I've had a couple friends, relatives battle with their mental health. I also lost a best friend due to the battle of mental health. So, mental health has been really a passion, a growing passion. It wasn't always a passion, but it became a growing passion. And I think ultimately, too, I'm just a person who's caring, who's very empathetic, and who wants the best for everyone. So it kind of just aligned in with my personality, too.
Wow, it's crazy. It's crazy how you said how you were saying, okay, I'm gonna go into this field because I don't like dealing with people, but you ended up going into a field that you have to deal with people,
Yes.
which is which is kind of crazy. How
Yeah.
it's always the thing. It's always the thing we never say what that we're gonna do that we end up doing and probably liking the most.
Yeah.
So, like for
Yeah, for sure.
like for me, I know it's not on the same I know it's not on the same scale, but for me, one thing I always said is I'll never work at a gym because I feel like if I work at a gym, I I'd be tired of the gym and wouldn't want to work out. And lo and behold, I'm working at a gym now. And to go back to and just to double back what you were talking about when I asked you about making a change, just a little bit about me. I worked at FedEx for over 6 plus years,
Wow.
and it got to a point where physically it was always taxing, but like within the past couple of years, it got to the point where mentally it was starting to get really draining. There would be days where I would show up, and after about an hour, I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like I can't, I can't function. There'd be times where I'd go use the bathroom and have to go sit in the bathroom for a little bit just to make sure like I'm good. Because if I feel like if I stay out in the general area, I'm just gonna snap on somebody just because I don't want to be here. And it took me having a conversation with my friend. He was like, yeah, you should um because for a while when because FedEx was my first job, and having several palsy, there's um even though mine is on the more of the mild side,
Hmm.
I'm still affected physically. So
Yeah.
there's, at least for me mentally, in my mind, I was like, okay, this is, I thought, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna work at FedEx. I'm gonna, because this is the only job that I'm able to get because of my disability, and I didn't get it through normal means. I was able to get it because my mom had a friend that worked in, so she helped me get the job. But it was after I had a conversation with my friend. He was like, "Yeah, why don't you just apply for another?" I mean, everybody was telling me, my mom was telling me to do this for a while, but when it comes to parents, we don't really, you know, kind of want to listen to what they have to say. We have to hear it from other people to, kind of get it. But it wasn't until I had the conversation with my friend where he was like, "Yeah, just apply for another job, and if you don't get it, you don't get it. But at least you tried." And then I was like, "You know what? What do I like doing? I like working out. I like talking to people. Why not just apply at a gym?" And so I did or just apply to somewhere where you know you can walk around and, well, not necessarily walk around, but like just be around people, because that's my thing. I'm very talkative. I'm very extrovert. I'm very like, I want to say like I'm an extroverted introvert, if that makes any sense. Like
Yeah.
I'm very extroverted, but I like have my introverted moments. So I was like, you know what, let me get a job where I can walk around and talk to people. And so I applied to T-Mobile. I thought my interview for that went really well. I didn't end up getting the job. Um, I didn't end up getting a call back from that. I ended up applying to LA Fitness. I didn't end up getting the job from that because I felt during the interview process when I was trying to, make the, because how I do my job, how I did my job interviews was the same way I'm kind of doing it like this. I made it more of a conversation,
Yeah.
because how I feel about job interviews, like just as much as you want the job, they're looking to hire someone, and if
Right.
you're not vibing with the person that's giving the interview, then you can offer, even if they offer you the job, you can say no just based off the vibes.
Yeah.
So I didn't that interview didn't go well, and it wasn't until I applied to Planet Fitness, where I work now, that I ended up getting the job. And I come to find out that my manager's brother has cerebral palsy as well. So when I was telling her about all the things that I deal with physically, she understood. She kind of understood it because he has cerebral palsy as well, but his is more on the mental side.
Mm.
But like, there's certain little idiosyncrasies that people with cerebral palsy has that she kind of understood. So, and
Yeah.
it and ever since and then I eventually ended up quitting FedEx, and it's been really really good because I go to work every day, and I enjoy going to work. I enjoy talking with members. I get to work out for free, obviously, as a plus, and just to be around the positive environment and the family environment that my manager likes to give is really good, and it's been really helpful. She has an
Yeah.
open door policy, so I can talk to her whenever. I have her phone number. There'll be times where I'll just sit and I'll text her sometimes. I'll let her know like, hey, physically is not a good enough day. I don't do it often. I don't do it as often as I should, but there will be days where I'm like, okay, physically I'm struggling a little bit. She'll be like, okay, don't try not to do too much. Make sure you sit down and make sure um, you do this, and this. So yeah,
That's
that's a
good.
yes for sure. So I'm looking on the screen. We have about like 10 minutes left in the Zoom call, because I'm not fancy enough to get to pay for Zoom Pro, to where we have unlimited time. So with the last 10 minutes, I want to open it up to you. Are there any questions that you have for me?
Yeah, so I would like to know, just growing up with the diagnosis that you've had, how was it for you? How are you adapting to it each day? Is it kind of a thing where you're angry about, or like kind of a why me situation? Like, how did you overcome, or how are you dealing with those thoughts and those feelings?
Well, to go back to what you just finished saying about the being angry and the why me, when I was growing up as a kid, I didn't see it that way, because my mom and my grandparents, and even my dad, who I just a little just a little bit of background. I grew up in a single parent household. My parents are together, but I do have a great relationship with my dad. But but just growing up with whenever I would go see my dad, and growing up with my mom and my grandparents, they never made me feel like I had a disability. It wasn't in, so I grew up pretty normal. I got to, play outside and do all the kid stuff, and, play in the dirt and do all that stuff. And it wasn't until I got to, middle school age, around 13, between 13, I want to say 13 to 17, to where I kind of started questioning it. I mentioned this in my other interviews, but it was around that age where I kind of, started to questioning it. Like, why why do I have this? Why do I struggle a little bit? Because around that age, teenagers, we're trying to figure out who we are and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And sometimes, friends that you had when you were little kids, they'll kind of, because they're still trying to find themselves as well, they'll kind of look at you like, wait, you're kind of different.
Yeah.
You're kind of different, and they might distance yourself. Look, thankfully I don't have people in my circle that were like that, but coming, going to school and you're getting older, you start liking boys or you start liking girls, and it's kind of like that's when it kind of like was like, oh man, is this girl gonna like me? Because I have cerebral palsy, because even though mine is more on the mild side, I there's still a lot that comes with it. There'll be days where I'm physically fine, and then there'll be days where physically it's not so well. But it wasn't until I got into like my middle to late 20s until now to where it's kind of like, okay, this is what I have. It doesn't define me. It's just something that I have, and that I have to deal with. So
Yeah.
that's what it's kind of been like for me. Like I dealt with it in stages. Like as a kid, I didn't really know this that I had it because I grew up in a way, and then you hit the middle, the teenager stage, to where you're kind of questioning everything, and then now as I'm getting older, it's more of, okay, I got it. I'm gonna have this forever. I just gotta learn how to adapt. And one thing I always say is that people with disabilities, whether it be mental or physical, are some of the most creative people ever, because things that may be easy for you, we have to, find workarounds for. So
Yep.
that's why I say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I wanted to ask another question and it like just it was on the tip of my brain and it slipped. Oh, I was gonna say, have you, and how old are you, may I ask?
I'm 31.
31. So in your 31 years, have you gone to counseling for mental health, or experienced any mentorship or things of that nature? And like, what do you think about, what are your thoughts about counseling as a Black man in America?
Um, I have not, and honestly, as I'm getting older, it's something I'm really considering now, because there were times during COVID when we were on lockdown, to where I had really really bad mental days, and my mom was always like, well, you can talk to, like, if you need anyone to talk to, I can call and try and set something up, and I would always be like, no, because I always went back to the stereotypical kind of thing. Okay, I don't want to talk to anyone because I don't want them knowing all my problems. And then looking back at it, I'm kind of like, well, I kind of should have, but at the same time I wasn't ready to. And then also, it was I know my dad's probably gonna watch this, and he was like, and he's probably gonna sit there and be like, I'm in mental health. Why don't you talk to me?
Yeah.
And then part of it's like, yeah, you're in this field, but you're also my parent,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like, even though you're like in the field and know all this stuff and can talk, and I can talk to you about this, kind of like I'm still talking to someone close. And how I feel about kind of counseling now is, I'd rather I'd want to talk to someone isn't that who isn't that close to the situation,
Right.
because I feel like if I talk to someone that isn't close, I feel like I'm gonna be searching and looking for validation because you're so close to the situation, and I don't
Yeah.
want to go through that. So, and I know I'm probably looking crazy because I'm frozen on my side of the screen right now, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it, and I'm really and I'd be open to it, for sure. I would just need to get approved from my insurance and see if my insurance would
Yeah.
cover.
I think the insurance thing is the most like difficult part for some people. Um, it's just kind of like it's because it's a process, it's not as easy as getting up and then just finding a therapist and going to counseling. A lot of little things that come into it. So yeah, I think I have a grieving heart for Black men and their mental health, as far as being a Black woman in America and trying to navigate all these things of like overcoming all of these barriers. I know that we as Black women have a struggle with, fitting in rooms and fitting in places. But I also know that men, too, African American men, Black men, struggle, especially with not feeling like they cannot speak out, they can't talk about things. It makes them look weak, or they were taught not to share anything, keep what's said in what's done in the house stays in the house type of thing. So breaking
Yeah.
those stigmas and really comforting our own of letting them know that, hey, this is a safe place. Hey, like, I'm here to listen and not to judge. I think it's been a really huge thing for me, because at the end of the day, you never want anyone to feel alone, and you never want anyone to take their life through due to the lack of support or feeling like they can't open up or get the mental help that they need.
Mhm. Yep. So, because we only have like probably like a few seconds left, I'm gonna have to speed run the outro because I don't want the video to cut off. Thanks
Not a
again
problem.
for being on. I really really appreciate it. You did not have to do this, so I really really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you I'm glad that that Ladanya like connected us together because
Yeah,
that was a
absolutely.
really
I'm
really
so
good
honored to
conversation.
be here, and I'm thankful for the interview, and I am really grateful for you. And like I said, thank you so much because you really invited me to your platform and I was able to speak out. So I think it was great for both of us.
Yes. So again, guys, this has been another episode of Cerebral Conversations.